You're drinking vodka and
Like a screwdriver.
Councillor Coles, do you have something to add right now? Your hand's up.
Can't hear
Okay,
you.
I'm going to call this meeting to order.
Hold on, and he can't hear. We can't hear him. Councillor Cole says no audio.
Can't hear you.
That's his issue.
He's not muted.
And we've lost Ted.
Do we have an IT guy handy, or what's going on?
Good afternoon. I'm going to call this meeting to order. Councillor Coles is getting some IT help. Before we begin, I want to acknowledge that we are in the traditional territory of the Anishinaabe peoples in the Williams and Huron-Robinson Treaties area. We recognize the long history of First Nations and Métis peoples on this land and show them respect today. We acknowledge our neighbors, the Wata Mohawks and the First Nations of Moose Deer, Shawniga, Wasauksing, Magnetawan, Henley Inlet, Nipissing, and the Dokis. In our learnings from our October 21st meeting with Chief Warren Tabodong and CAO Adam Good, I want to stress the importance of accepting our responsibility to take care of Mother Earth, her plants, her animals, and our shared peoples. We will look to each other and the elders of both nations as a source of inspiration, guidance, and the living memory of our communities. We have much to learn about the stewardship of our planet to ensure that the decisions we make today will take into consideration the future of our children and that of our children's children's. This is the final meeting of an incredible council team. And what a team it was. And what a list of accomplishments. You have made Seguin Township a better place to live, work, and play through your dedication, commitment, and generosity of spirit in the past 4 years. I have been especially honored to get to know each and every one of you and to learn and work with you. We did not always agree, but I believe we always carried the importance of honesty, transparency, and quality of life for our ratepayers jointly and with a shared responsibility. And just to name a few of your accomplishments of this term of council, we have a new CAO and most of a new senior leadership team. We have a thriving culture within the township work environment. The Aquatic and Recreation Center is real at last. The improved airport facilities are under construction. A campus of care is becoming a reality. We are focused on fixing the local housing crisis with our MZO. Our official plan, short-term rentals, and site alteration challenges are well underway and being dealt with. And we have a new understanding of our Wasauksing neighbors that will help us for years to come. We are the 5th fastest growing community of our size in Ontario. In short, Seguin is on a roll because of you and your commitment to building community. And I won't even mention that all of this happened in the context of the COVID pandemic and uncertainty and the challenges that came with that. We had no idea when we were elected. It is a bittersweet moment when we are saying farewell to 3 important members of this council team, Councillor Art Coles, Councillor Rod Osborne, and a little earlier, Councillor Darrell Moffat. All have cared passionately for our community, and they will be missed at the council table. I do hope that all three of you will continue to contribute in your own ways to Seguin. I am personally planning to keep in touch with you and hope you will do the same. I truly appreciate your support and the contributions you have made. Many, many thanks on behalf of the community and this council. I just want to draw your attention to the addendum that you received around 2 o'clock. There's some correspondence which has been added to an item. Hang on, where'd it go? Correspondence and some changes in the shore road allowance. I'm bringing them up to date. And a discussion of the structure 27 will be added to the closed agenda. So with those changes, I call for the approval of the agenda. All in favor of the agenda with the addendums? Thank you. And is there any disclosure of pecuniary interest and general nature thereof? I see none, so we move on. I have a motion that the Council of the Corporation of the Township of Seguin does hereby adopt the minutes of the regular meeting of council held on October 17th, 2022 as circulated. Could I have a motion from Councillor Osborne
So moved.
and seconded by Councillor Fellner?
I'll second that.
All in favor? Thank you. I have a motion that the Council of the Corporation of the Township of Seguin does hereby adjourn the regular meeting to hold a public meeting for the following matters. Zoning bylaw amendment application R 2022-0026, which is a housekeeping bylaw. Consent application number B 2022-0025F for Petrosor. Consent application number B 2022-0024-H for Atkinson, and zoning bylaw amendment application number R 2022-0022-H for Scott, and zoning bylaw amendment application number R 2022-0007-H for Kunst. Could I have a motion from Councillor Collins
I so move your motion there.
and seconded by Councillor Finson?
I second that.
All in favor of moving into the public meeting? Thank you. Council will now hold public meetings for proposed consent and zoning bylaw amendment applications. In accordance with the Planning Act, Council will consider all matters placed before it prior to granting a consent or passing a zoning bylaw. If a person or public body who files an appeal of a decision of the Council of the Corporation of the Township of Seguin in respect of a proposed consent does not make written submissions to the council before it provides or refuses to provide a provisional consent, the Ontario Land Tribunal may dismiss the appeal. Anyone wishing to receive notice of the passing of a zoning bylaw amendment not owning land within 120 meters of the area to which it applies and who has not submitted such a request in writing should provide their full name and address to the clerk. If a person or public body does not make oral submissions at a public meeting or make written submissions to the Council of the Corporation of the Township of Seguin, the person or public body is not entitled to appeal the decision of council to the Ontario Land Tribunal, and the person or public body may not be added as a party to the hearing of an appeal before the Ontario Land Tribunal, unless, in the opinion of the tribunal, there are reasonable grounds to do so. The purpose of zoning bylaw amendment application number R 2022-0026 housekeeping floodplain is to amend the floodplain elevations in accordance with a Hatch Engineering Technical Floodplain Study. This would apply to new development per section 4.14B of the zoning bylaw and apply to waterfront lots on Lake Joseph, Little Lake Joseph, and Lake Rosso. I now ask the clerk to state the method by which the notice of the meeting was provided and the dates on which that notice was provided.
Notice of the public meeting was provided by posting the property and by regular mail on October 13th, 2022. Notice was therefore considered provided in accordance with the requirements of the Planning Act.
Has the township received any correspondence with respect to this application?
No correspondence has been received.
Has anyone registered to speak in favor of or in opposition to this application?
No one has registered to speak to this application.
Taylor, do you want to speak to this?
Certainly. Through your worship, this was a council directed amendment to update our floodplain provisions from our old numbers from the MNRF, which would have been the early 2000s, with more up-to-date numbers, which were initiated by the District of Muskoka through Hatch Engineering. Essentially, the new floodplain elevation is 226.7 meters of elevation. And this also takes into account climate change, which our old numbers did not do that.
Thank you. Does council have any questions? I see none, so we move on. The purpose of consent application number B 2022-0025-F for Petrosor is to provide right-of-way access over the subject lands at 6 Lower Lane to benefit the lands at 38 Lower Lane. I now ask the clerk to state the method by which notice of the meeting was provided and the dates on which that notice was provided.
Notice of the public meeting was provided by posting the property and by regular mail on October 24th, 2022. Notice was therefore considered provided in accordance with the requirements of the Planning Act.
Has the township received any correspondence?
No correspondence has been received.
Has anyone registered to speak in favor of or in opposition to this application?
No one has registered to speak to this application.
Brady, do you have anything to add?
No, nothing further to add, your worship.
Just a quick question for you. What about the other owners on Lower Lane? Do they already have right-of-ways?
I am not sure if they have right-of-ways over that property or not. So the granting or the benefiting lands, they already have right-of-way over the properties in between. So they're just getting right-of-way over the remaining property. But I cannot speak to the other property owners on Lower Lane.
Okay, thank you. Does council have any questions? No, so we move on. The purpose of consent application number B 2022-0024-H for Atkinson is to permit a boundary adjustment to allow for the construction of a 1.5-story boathouse on the benefiting lot. No new lots would be created. I now ask the clerk to state the method by which notice of the meeting was provided and the dates on which that notice was provided.
Notice of the public meeting was provided by posting the property and by regular mail on October 24th, 2022. Notice was therefore considered to provide in accordance with the requirements of the Planning Act.
Has the township received any correspondence with respect to this application?
No correspondence has been received.
Has anyone registered to speak in favor of or in opposition to this application?
Stefan Seiserbach of Planscape, agent for the applicant, has registered to speak to this application and is present, I believe. Just saw him.
Stefan, are you there? Okay, there you are. Thank you. Do you want to explain a little bit about this?
Yes, good afternoon. Sorry, I just wasn't aware of if what was said earlier. I'd just been waiting for the meeting. Did staff present a brief description? I just don't want to repeat anything that was said.
We asked you to speak prior to Brady, so you go ahead.
Thank you very much. Okay, perfect. Just to clarify, Stefan Sherbach, Planscape Inc., 104 Kimberley Avenue in Bracebridge. I'm here today representing the Atkinson family, and I understand that they're also watching the proceedings this afternoon. Within the report itself, the application, from my perspective, is fairly straightforward, where it's simply going to add a slight amount of water frontage onto a neighboring lot. The neighboring lot is also owned by the Atkinsons, and the purpose of this 50-foot lot addition is essentially to build a 1 1/2 story boathouse so that it meets the minimum frontage requirements for the subject benefiting lands. The application was drafted to avoid a submission of a planning application seeking relief for deficient water frontage, and it just felt it was easier to just carve off a small portion of land and obviously give it to the neighboring property. Both properties are developed. We understand that one of the conditions will simply reflect the revised lot configuration, and it will request a slight reduction to the side lot line from an existing 1.5-story boathouse, as well as a slight increase to the existing lot coverage with the subject lands. Both lots are very large. There's no new development proposed on the retained lot. And just in addition, more of an interest at this point, the family, they do own several other adjoining lots directly east of this property. It is their future plans to consolidate them and adjust them so that they are larger created regular size lots for future development. And that again is for the purpose of ensuring that the character of this shoreline is being maintained. As clearly described in the staff report in front of you, the planning analysis is brief and accurate. In summary, I'm fully in support of staff's recommendations, as well as the noted conditions, and would respectfully request council support this direction. Thank you very much for your time, and I'm available to answer any questions you have.
Thank you, Stefan. Brady, do you have anything to add?
No, nothing further to add.
Does council have any questions?
No, straightforward.
Nope. Okay, we move on. The purpose of zoning bylaw amendment application number R 2022-0022-H for Scott is to rezone the subject lands to an SR1 exception zone to permit a guest cabin to be located within in an existing detached garage. I now ask the clerk to state the method by which notice of the meeting was provided and the dates on which that notice was provided.
Notice of the public meeting was provided by posting the property and by regular mail on October 18th, 2022. Notice was therefore considered to provide in accordance with the requirements of the Planning Act.
Has the township received any correspondence with respect to this application?
Correspondence in support of the application has been received from Bernie and Bianca Hines, Lauren and Carolyn Plavine, Robert Ryan and Suzanne Beaudry, John and Sue Aonzo, Marie Hewitt and Rob Anderson, John and Evelyn Cooper.
Has anyone registered to speak in opposition, in favor of, or in opposition to this application?
Stephen Fauner of Northern Vision Planning, agent for the applicant, is registered to speak this application and is present.
Mr. Fauner, would you like to comment on this?
Yes, thank you. Stephen Fauner, Northern Vision Planning Limited, 109 Meadow Heights Drive, Bracebridge, Ontario, P1L184. I'm here representing David and Catherine Scott today, who are owners of this property on Silver Lake. It's quite a large property, and they are proposing an enlarged sleeping cabin. I'd like to thank staff for their positive report, and thanks for including my report on the agenda and the letters of support. I do have a PowerPoint presentation I'd like to go through. I believe that I'm able to share the screen, I believe.
Yes. Keep your presentation to 10 minutes, please.
Yeah, no problem. Oh,
We can see your screen now.
okay, thank you. Okay, so in terms of the proposal, it is proposed that it be an enlarged sleeping cabin, approximately 1,000 square feet, height slightly being above the maximum permitted in your bylaw. The purpose of this is actually to provide overflow accommodation on the property. The existing dwelling is 4 bedrooms, but my client actually, he has 10 siblings and his wife has a further 4 siblings. So, and I believe that they get visited from time to time. So they are looking for some additional habitable space. This is the overall property in itself, and the property around the point has almost 3,000 feet of frontage, so it's a very large piece of property, and has substantial acreage as well. And this is just showing a close-up of the existing buildings on the property. Again, the proposed guest cabin is actually in an existing building, which is currently used as a garage. This is the existing building here, and these were the original drawings that were used for the building permit for the garage. We're looking at using the left 2 bays of the garage, if you will, and with that peak facing forward here. So this is the proposed structure with slight changes, change to the windows, if you will. Instead of having the garage doors, they're looking at a window area that'll, be fairly tall, but certainly let in a considerable amount of light. And you can see the measurements for height on the drawings. This is the end of the structure, if you will, where there will be the entrance to the guest cabin on the right, and the left entrance will be an entrance to a storage area. And this is a 3D configuration. The other 3 bays of the garage enter from the right part of that. It maybe should have been drawn on here to be a little bit clearer. This is the interior floor area of the building. It's on the main floor, it's a little over 600 square feet, and it's a little over 300 square feet on the upper mezzanine, which would give you a total of 1,000 square feet. In terms of the site itself, this is actually one of the only places on the whole property where there's not a full shoreline buffer right down to the shore. And this happens to be right near the existing garage. That's the only place you can really see much of a building on the whole property. This is looking at sort of from the directly out onto the water, and you certainly don't see the building at all. And this is the existing garage itself. And this is actually used as a boat launch ramp from very infrequent use, but a couple of the neighbors also use it as well. And this just shows the ramp down to the water's edge. This is the interior of the garage currently, and they're actually going to be building an interior wall in here to actually reduce the floor area of what's currently there on this particular level. This is looking towards the existing dwelling on the property. It is a large dwelling. I don't have the exact square footage, but it's in the neighborhood of 4,000 to 5,000 square feet. And this is the most exposed part of the dwelling from the lake. This is on the west side of the point, so it's very well hidden by trees, even though it is a large dwelling. This is the entrance into the property, and the sort of lighter area in the back of the picture, that's actually where the garage is, just on the right-hand side of the laneway going in. A proposed septic bed would accompany this application, and there's lots of room. We've had Cottage Country Environmental review the septic requirements, and he says there is room for a new septic bed that would service this guest cabin. And this is just the gates into the property. So in terms of planning analysis, the BPS permits recreational dwellings, and staff identified that, and I certainly agree with that. And the official plan speaks to preservation of the shoreline vegetation, and in this case, it's actually over 99%. You have a shoreline buffer on this property. The built form, in my opinion, is sensitive to the lake, and partly because it is an existing building, and your lot coverage is under 3%. The comprehensive zoning bylaw does allow a guest cabin as of right. However, it's my opinion, and I believe staff as well, that a new structure would actually have a greater impact on the property. The existing building is 99 feet from the current water's edge instead of the minimum required of 66 feet. I mentioned Cottage Country Environmental has already reviewed septic requirements, and there is a location for a new system on site. Based on lot size alone, the property is severable. However, we know that staff was not comfortable because of the status of the lake. Originally, we came in with a larger proposal. It was a dwelling at 2,000 square feet, and the application was amended. So given the large size of the dwelling, this will still remain subordinate and incidental to the main use. And I mentioned the interior wall was being constructed to actually reduce the floor area. Just wanted to mention that there was a recent other approval on Otter Lake by a committee of adjustment, and that allowed for 4 bedrooms and 2 bathrooms. And it was, my one sentence there is a little bit incorrect, but in that case, though, it was to go to 85 square meters or 15 square feet. So we're a little bit larger than that, but we're on a much larger property. So just in conclusion, I know it's a little bit repetitive, but certainly feel the property is large enough for this proposal and certainly will remain secondary to the main use. It's better than building a new cabin on the property. This is utilizing an existing building. And again, lot coverage is below 3%, and we have an increased setback. And again, certainly adequate area for a septic bed. So I'm here to answer any questions on this, and again, be happy to clarify anything if needed.
Thank
Thank
you
you.
very much. We have a favorable staff report as well. Does council have any questions? Nope, there being none, we move on.
Yes.
Oh.
Yes, your worship.
I don't see your hand, but okay, Councillor Osborne, one question.
Well, I put that up for you, wherever it is. So, Mr. Bonner, is it?
That's correct, yes.
Okay, you refer to this as a guest cabin. How many bedrooms in here? Two or more?
There are 3. There's 1 on the main level and 2 in the mezzanine.
Okay, so I kind of 1,000-foot guest cabin with 3 bedrooms and new septic. To me, is another dwelling. Now, you mentioned that it's a large family with a lot of siblings. I understand Silver Lake is a tote lake, considered a tote lake at capacity for RCC. So by approving this, what we're actually doing is we're allowing another family or families to occupy on a lake that's already at RCC threshold. That's one of the problems I have, calling it a cabin when in fact 1,000 square foot 3 bedroom is more like a cottage. But I'm just not sure. There's a couple other questions I have too. The maximum floor area for a guest cabin is 60 square meters. This is proposed to be almost 93. The maximum height shall not exceed 4.5 meters, and this height exceeds by a full meter. And our zoning says, unless specifically permitted, a guest cabin shall be limited to 1 story. And this is proposed to be 1.5 stories. So they're the 3 questions I have for you that are not in compliance with our zoning. Thank you.
Councillor Osborne, the entire floor plan is on page 187 of your
have
agenda
it.
package. So
I have
that's
it.
where you can see that it was 3 bedrooms.
That's fine. I would like the questions answered by Mr. Bonner, please.
Yeah, if I can recall them correctly, anyways, in terms of the floor area itself, again, we're dealing with something that it is certainly larger than what you would normally permit, but it is going to remain incidental to the main dwelling. It is a large dwelling. It is a very large size property. They can, as of right, actually have a guest cabin on this property, so they can have 2 habitable buildings. I think the one thing to keep in mind is that they cannot have a kitchen within this building, and my clients are fully aware of that. I'm quite comfortable that it's going to be used as a guest cabin as opposed to another dwelling. And I think the kitchen area is key in that regard. And I would say too that Seguin Township is more strict than other municipalities regarding the sort of lack of kitchen facilities. There's nothing preventing them from having another septic system on the property as of right. So that has no bearing from an environmental point of view. So that can be done as of right. So I know it's larger than you would expect. And again, I used a comparable on Otter Lake where we're only slightly larger, and that was approved by way of a minor variance. And this is a zoning bylaw amendment. I'm not sure if I've answered all your questions, but I hope I've touched on something for you.
Thank you.
Councillor Collins, I see your hand up.
Yes, Mayor, thank you. I just have one question. Is the garage attached to the main building, or is it separate to the main building, the main house?
Go ahead,
Through-
Mr. Barner.
Okay, through the mayor. this garage is separate from the main dwelling. And I think it's pretty clear on the site plan there that you can show, and there's actually pretty fair distance between the two structures. It's a good 200 feet at least between the dwelling and the structure.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Lauren, do you have anything to add?
Thank you, Your Worship. Nothing further to add. Steve did a great job at describing the proposal. I will just add that 6 of the neighboring property owners have submitted letters of support, and 2 of those included the abutting property owners. Thank you.
Thank you. And I think it's important that there's no new buildings going onto this land. So with that, we will move on. Thank you, Mr. Fenner. The purpose of zoning bylaw amendment application number R 2022-0007-H for Kuntz is to rezone the subject property to a shoreline residential 1 exception zone to facilitate the construction of a detached garage with a guest cabin in the, am I reading the wrong one? Nope. Okay, sorry. Detached garage is located in a similar location to the existing legal non-complying detached garage and is larger in size. I now ask the clerk to state the method by which notice of the meeting was provided and the dates on which that notice was provided.
Notice of the public meeting was provided by posting the property and by regular mail on October 18th, 2022. Notice was therefore considered to provide in accordance with the requirements of the Planning Act.
Has the township received any correspondence with respect to this application?
Correspondence in support of the application has been received from Judith and Tom Rallis, James Booter and Mark Rausa, Mary Barco and Herbert Apps, Bruce and Carolyn Pollock, Trish and Michael Killen, David Stewart, P. and Fred Kolb, and Jay Kettle. A letter of concern was received from Eric and Andrea Notkin.
Has anyone registered to speak in favor of or in opposition to this application?
Eric Notkin and John Jackson, agent for the applicant, have registered to speak, and Mr. Notkin is present. I don't believe Mr. Jackson is.
Okay, and Taylor, are you there, or is there a representative? Patrick, are you on? Okay. So I'll ask Patrick to go first.
Thank you, Your Worship. As mentioned, I'm Patrick Towns, representing my colleagues from MHPC tonight. The application, as mentioned, is to rebuild the existing detached garage. The new garage is proposed to have a guest cabin on the 2nd story. As a result of the size and location of the new design, there's amendments required to the zoning bylaw. Those amendments are outlined in the information report prepared for you tonight. No analysis has been prepared at this time by staff. We'll take the comments from this meeting tonight and we'll prepare a recommendation report at a subsequent meeting. As mentioned by the clerk's department, majority of the comments received have been positive, with 1 in opposition as well. But again, we'll consider all the comments received tonight and will be considered through a recommendation report. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And we don't have Mr. Jackson. Okay, Mr. Notkin, would you like to? Oh, sorry. Mr. Notkin, go ahead.
Yes, thank you. Thank you, Your Worship. Good afternoon. I had actually registered largely to be available to answer questions in respect to the comprehensive concerns that I had submitted to the clerk. For the attention of council. I did not have a chance to review the addendum. I just looked at it very briefly just while the other matter was being heard. I would like to raise one additional item though as a supplement. Councillor Osborne just addressed the issue of whether or not a 3-bedroom, 3-bathroom structure can reasonably be construed as a garage or accessory structure. And I think that is, in fact, very much the same issue that we have here. This is a deemed or being called an accessory structure, but in fact, it is a secondary dwelling. And unlike the other application, this is a very, very small lot. Even the staff report recognizes that the lot itself is already overbuilt in what is a very congested part of Maureen Drive. In fact, probably the most densely congested part of the entire neighborhood. And while there are letters of support that I see have been submitted in the addendum with respect, none of those are adversely impacted by the proposed structure. I don't have a summary of my concerns prepared, but they are not trivial. They are well-founded in reference to the official plan and the provincial policy statement. They are quite significant. And I have indicated in my concerns that I'm certainly open to working with the Township Planning Department and the applicant to try to find a common ground. But the proposal as currently submitted is just so significantly offside and requires, as you can see, no fewer than 7 amendments that in my view, I respectfully submit that it simply is so non-compliant as to be implausible for the nature of the neighborhood and the lot in particular, and the adverse impact on my property. And to respond to one of the letters that was submitted from neighbors, there was no suggestion or no intention for me to suggest that I am representing the neighborhood. I am speaking as a concerned neighbor. And again, as is typical with rural property, it's usually only one neighbor who is impacted by these types of proposals. And unfortunately, in this case, that happens to be me. So that's all I wanted to say. Unless any councillors have had a chance to review my submission, I'm here to answer any questions regarding that.
Thank you very much. Your letter in its entirety is, all of council has that. Mr. Jackson, do you have anything to add?
Thank you, Madam Chair. I apologize for some technical issues that I had. Maybe I'm muted. No, fine. Are you hearing me, Madam Chair?
Yes, we are.
Oh, okay, sorry. Just double checking on those technical difficulties. As I said, I'll just give a brief overview. I was asked to represent the Kunzes with respect to replacing their garage on their property on Maureen Drive. And most of the council are quite familiar with Maureen Drive in terms of the historical small lot subdivision that it is. It's an interesting place. It's a very tight community and somewhat usual in the sense that it has a orientation to both the street and the water. Even though it's truly part of the lakefront community, there's as much focus as there on the roadside as there is on the waterfront. The situation really is that Mr. and Mrs. Kunz have a very small, unassuming dwelling with a single bedroom in it, and they need two things, and that is additional accommodation for their family and grandchildren when they visit from time to time. So the idea was to dovetail that need with the need to store inside rather than outside materials, because Jim is now he's somewhat retired, but he was a pretty active contractor for many, many years, having moved up a number of years ago from the city. So he has a great deal of knowledge when it comes to the building industry. And what he's asking to be considered here is to accommodate those two needs on the same site with a slightly larger boathouse combination, garage, and accessory building above that structure. As you'll see from the drawings, it's somewhat similar to what's there now, although because of the way the terrain falls off and how the bylaw defines frontage, we're asking for an increase in frontage, increase in height from the maximum allowed of 4.5 meters at the water side to as high as 8.8 meters. But the actual impact area of the proposed replacement structure will be about 18 feet or 6 meters or 1.5 meters on the roadside, which is the side that faces the neighbor who just spoke. And I do realize that Mr. Notkin has made some expressions of concern. I've looked at those as a professional planner fairly carefully, and I do not share the impacts that he's suggesting. If those that know the neighborhood, including Mr. Notkin's property, almost everything that is done along Marine Drive needs a relief from the bylaw to some extent. And in fact, that relief was sought and obtained by Mr. Notkin for his property, which would be of greater density than what's involved here. And I don't share the notion that this has anything to do with any other analogous property, because this is quite unique. And Mr. and Mrs. Kuntz are trying to respect the neighborhood more than actually do anything that would be more impactful. They've weighed a couple of different options, including expanding the existing structure, et cetera, that was felt to believe to be more impactful in the long run. So with the preservation of the tree cover on the waterfront side, it will not likely have any perceptible impact. The actual requests are very, very low in terms of true relief. For example, the existing legal front yard for this property, because it's a shallow lot, is 5.7 meters. The replacement building will be 4.7 meters. So the relief is really only 1 meter, not to be compared to the parent requirement of 20 meters, just given the nature of the history of development on these small lots in the past. And actually, if you look at the site plan, the coverage overall is not going to have a significant overage in terms of the request. The street side will have it'll maintain the existing 7 meters of setback from Marine Drive. What we did, and I'm not sure if I saw that in MHBC's report, is an elevation drawing that shows the impact of what's being proposed. I wonder if I could share the screen, Madam Chair, and just show you that elevation so that I could show you how tastefully this is going to ultimately end up. Is that possible?
Yes, but we have the elevation in our agenda package.
Oh, okay, you saw it, Madam Mayor. That's great. Okay, so I'm just trying to emphasize that with greatest respect, I don't share the concerns or objections by the neighbor that this will have a significant impact on him as much as it will others. And the support for the application that council is now quite aware of comes from the actual benefit that the neighborhood believes that will be realized by having a much cleaner yard area with materials now placed inside. So we would respectfully request that council support the application when the final report comes in. I have Mr. Kuntz with me if there's a technical question on any matter that I might not be able to answer, but I thank you for this opportunity, Madam Mayor.
Thank you very much. Does council have any questions? Councillor Collins, do I see you putting your hand up?
Yes, I am, Mayor. Sorry.
Go ahead.
Okay,
Councillor
thank
Collins.
you. Yes, John, you just mentioned that there is a lot of material around the existing garage now. Is this new garage going to be used for business purposes, commercial business purposes, well as a dwelling?
No, it'll be a bunkie. The garage shop, it'll be like a hobby shop. It's not going to, it's his own personal materials like ladders and
Okay.
a couple of drums just to get the stuff hidden away more than anything. But it won't be a functioning business per se operated from this site.
And my only other concern is the height requirement. You're doubling the height there. That's
But again, it only comes from the fact of how this thing falls off at the rear, where I'm calling it the rear because the front is sort of the activity area, and that height difference will be almost imperceptible. It'll only be a meter and a bit higher than what's there now.
okay. Thanks, John.
Counselor Osborne.
Yes, thank you, Mayor. Through you to John. Good evening, John.
Hello, Ron.
Yeah, I have a few concerns here. First off, I'd just like to make mention, there's a CAO comment at the top, page 241. This is a small parcel of land that appears to be overly developed in its current state, increasing the lot coverage, raises concerns of stormwater management and flows into the lake. So the CAO is questioning for more information. I don't know if he's received that yet or not. That raises a flag to me, as well as that height, that 8.8 meters versus 4.5. I'm quite familiar with Maureen Crescent and how tight it is in there between road and water. And I just wonder if we're, again, to accommodate growing families, expanding living quarters to a point well beyond our existing zoning. And I noticed too that on page 260, which is the conclusion of our planners, comment is made, planning department's recommendation that comments be received and a recommendation report be prepared at a subsequent meeting. Typically, our planning department recommends in a situation like this. In this case, they're not recommending. It looks as though they're seeking further information. So I'd just like to caution the new council coming up that to make sure that the CEO's concerns about stormwater management, runoff, et cetera, are addressed, and that the building requirements aren't over exercised. That's all I have. Thank you.
Thank you. I will remind you that this is the public meeting and the CAO will follow up to have his questions addressed before there's actually a motion before council. Councillor Fellner.
Oh, sorry, guys. Madam Chair, can I just speak to Councillor Osborne's comments there, just very briefly?
Very briefly, please.
Okay, drainage will not change. The coverage will actually be very subtle in terms of the actual change based on what is measured and what is not measured as far as coverage is concerned. And just to speak to process, this is standard process. The planners don't normally recommend a public meeting for fear of trying to predetermine council's deliberations. So this is the typical process. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Thank you for that, but I did notice on the previous application that there was, everything seemed to be tickety-boo and a recommendation was made. In this case, it was not. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Fellner, you have the floor.
Thank you, Mayor. Hi, John. How are you doing?
Good, thanks, Councillor.
Good. I'm just looking at your site sketch, figure 2. And it seems like the proposed detached garage is, as it's depicted, is got a larger footprint than the existing cottage. Is that correct?
No, because you have to count the deck. The deck's out front. I call it front. It's roadside. That's included in the coverage.
Yeah, I guess I'm just wondering why why you'd want to put such a large structure on such a small lot. Was there any thought that just they're demolishing the existing garage, or the intent is anyhow, is why wouldn't you attach it to the building? Why wouldn't you simply do that, move it over? You kind of locate the structures more in the center of the lot. I mean, we anyone that knows that area knows that it's all the lots are extremely challenged as far as space goes and you know, any kind of buffering that you can get would be ideal. So I guess that was my question. Why wasn't there given any thought, you know, to just simply demolishing the garage and incorporating everything into one main structure?
We actually did carefully consider that, and we talked about that with the planners who also had a dialogue on that topic. And it turned out, we believe correctly, that the addition on the building by removing it, making an attached garage combination accessory kind of structure was going to be more impactful, more massing than would be beneficial to the neighborhood. And if you look at the terrain very carefully, it lends itself to kind of having this kind of separation. So that was looked at, completely looked at. And,
okay.
And it was partly what's going on inside as well, Terry, in the existing house, the little house.
Right.
So it was regarded.
Okay, thanks.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Mr. Jackson.
Thank you.
Council will now close the public meeting and reconvene the regular meeting. I have a motion that the public meeting held for the following matters is hereby closed and that the regular meeting is hereby reconvened. Zoning bylaw amendment application number R 2022-0026, housekeeping. Consent application B 2022-0025-F for Petrosor. Consent application number B 2022-0024-H for Atkinson. Zoning bylaw amendment application number R 2022-0022-H for Scott. And zoning bylaw amendment application number R 2022-0007-H for Kunst. Could I have a motion from Councillor Coles?
I will so move, Mayor.
And seconded by Councillor Osborne.
Second that, Mayor.
All in favor? Thank you. I have a motion that bylaw number 2022-122 being a bylaw to amend the Township of Seguin zoning bylaw number 2006-125, the housekeeping update for the floodplain is hereby deemed to have been read a first, second, and third time and passed by council. Could I have a motion from Councillor Fellner?
So moved.
And seconded by Councillor Collins?
Seconded.
All in favor? Thank you. I have a motion that Council of the Corporation of the Township of Seguin does hereby grant provisional approval to consent application number B 2022-0025-F for Petrosor, subject to the conditions set out in the decision. Could I have a motion from Councillor Finson?
I so move.
And seconded by Councillor Coles.
I will second that motion.
All in favor? And I have a motion that the Council of the Corporation of the Township of Seguin does hereby grant provisional approval to consent application number B 2022-0024-H for Atkinson, subject to the conditions set out in the decision. Could I have a motion from Councillor Osborne?
So move.
And seconded by Councillor Fellner.
I'll second that motion.
All in favor? Thank you. And I have a motion that bylaw number 2022-121, being a bylaw to amend the Township of Seguin zoning bylaw number 2006-125, property roll number 4903-010-006-09101, application number R 2022-0022-H for 87 Silver Point Drive for Scott is hereby deemed to have been read a first, second, and third time and passed by council. Could I have a motion from Councillor Collins?
I so move your motion, Mayor.
And seconded by Councillor Finson?
I second that motion.
You. Council will now consider the following road allowance applications. Shore Road Allowance Application Number RAS 2020-0014-H and RAS 2020-0015-H for Wadden on Trout Lake, bylaw number 2022-108. Have any written objections been received related to these applications?
Written objections have been received from G. David Parsons related to the applications. Linda Wadden, the applicant, has submitted a written response to the objections.
Has anyone registered to speak to these applications?
No one has registered to speak to these applications.
Does council have any questions for Lauren on this? I see none. So we move on. I have a motion that bylaw number 2022-018, being a bylaw to close, stop up, and sell portions of the original Shore Road Allowance, applications number RAS 2020-0014-H and RAS 2020-0015-H for Wadden is hereby deemed to have been read a first, second, and third time and passed by council. Could I have a motion from Councillor Coles
I will so move.
and seconded by Councillor Osborne?
Second.
All in favor? Thank you. I have a motion that Council of the Corporation of the Township of Seguin does hereby receive the staff reports as presented on the agenda for November 7th, 2022 meeting of council. Could I have a motion from Councillor Fellner
So move.
and seconded by Councillor Collins?
I'll second it.
All in favor of receiving the staff reports? Okay. And we move on to the first one, which is Development and Protective Services. This is a bylaw number 2022-123, being a bylaw to authorize the execution of a subdivision agreement between the Corporation of the Township of Seguin and 255569 Ontario Inc. for the development of the Clear Lakes Estate subdivision, concession CON-2021-0001-F is hereby deemed to have been read a first, second, and third time and passed by council. Could I have a motion from Councillor Finson
I so move.
and seconded by Councillor Coles?
I will second that motion.
And I believe Mr. Bell is here to talk to it. Is he there?
Yes, hello, Mayor McDermott and council.
Yep, we can't see you. We can hear you.
There, good evening.
Good evening, Mr. Bell.
Well, you've had the motion and you've adopted it for the bylaw, so I'm not going to take any unnecessary time. You have my staff report where we've laid out what the developer has been doing and his team to very diligently complete this subdivision. You've had several staff reports before. So the staff is ready to recommend that the subdivision agreement be signed once the developer has completed the items of the subdivision agreement. There is a table of 16 items, and Mr. Brown and his team are working through all of that. And once those are all provided to the municipality, then that will enable the mayor and clerk to actually sign the subdivision agreement and get this registered. The developer very much wants it and needs it as soon as possible. So it's all in order, council. The bylaws in front of you. Staff are working through the more detailed matters of zoning, and we'll be taking a zoning bylaw amendment to a public meeting for the minor revisions and tune-ups and the addition of some zones necessary because of the environmental reports. That's working through. The subdivision agreement has been drafted. It's in substantially complete form, and we're working between the lawyers and the staff and Mr. Brown's team to complete that. So long story short, it's ready or near ready to be signed and registered, and it's in the developer's court to complete the items, and the staff will work expeditiously with them to facilitate that and the registration. I'd be pleased to answer any questions, and I think that Mr. LG has a couple of additional remarks.
Thank you very much, Mr. Bell. Taylor, do you want to add to this?
Yeah, just one quick note. One amendment we'll be making to the subdivision agreement is to note that if there is any blasting required for entrances, so driveways into the property, that'll be done by the developer. Idea being, we don't think it's a reasonable expectation that a property owner will have to undertake extensive blasting to gain access to their lot. Developer is aware and welcoming of this idea, so that would be one small change which works under the format of being substantially approved. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Does council have any questions? This has been a long time coming.
Sorry.
Councillor Coles.
Yeah, I don't really have any questions. I just think it's a bit of a model project. These guys have been through, in my words, hell to get to this point. They had a rough go at the beginning, a very rough go. And this project, I think the subdivision was laid out in 1992 by a different owner, and they purchased it more recently, but it's a long term, and I think they've done a really good job. I've visited it several times with them and on my own with the environmentalists that they had working with them, and I only have good things to say about it. So thank you.
Thank you very much. Councillor Osborne.
Thank you, Mayor. My only question is, Mr. Bell, is there a matter of urgency that we would execute a plan of subdivision prior to all conditions being met? Is that not somewhat a cart before the horse? Thank you.
Mayor McDermott and Councillor Osborne, the subdivision agreement would not be signed before all of the conditions are met. The motion and the bylaw you've adopted is explicit in that regard, that it will not be executed until the items of 3.1 of the subdivision agreement are actually in the township's hands to the township's satisfaction.
All right, I get that, but at the same time, council is being asked to execute and authorize the execution of the agreement.
Yeah.
Today, even those conditions have not yet been met. That's what I don't understand.
Mr. LG, you want to reply to this? He and I have talked about this. It's not going to be executed until 3.1 is complete. But Taylor, do you want to speak to this?
Yes, please. This isn't entirely uncommon. It is common that there will be matters such as securities, which will be inserted after the fact, which dictate how much money we take before the roads be done. It's often this comes into context with the references of R plans or M plans. Those are usually not done yet at this stage. So it's more or less technical details. We specifically mentioned the driveway note earlier on because that was a larger thing that isn't in there, but that will have to be added. And that came from a call from a neighboring property owner that, you know what, let's spell it out so it's absolutely plain to council. So they're aware of it. So executing in the format as substantially attached, passage is still going to be dependent upon the conditions being fulfilled before execution. And I think it's safe to do so, in my opinion.
Thank you very much. Any further questions? All in favor? Thank you. And congratulations for getting this far. I have a motion that bylaw number 2022-101 being a bylaw to amend the Township of Seguin zoning bylaw number 2006-125 property roll number 4903-030-011-01400 R 2022-0018 for FF Marvel Limited is hereby deemed to have been read a first, second, and third time and passed by council. Could I have a motion from Councillor Osborne
So moved.
and seconded by Councillor Fellner?
Second that.
Taylor, do you want to speak to this one again a little bit, please?
Certainly, through your worship. This is an item that came from a public meeting some months ago, and there was a lot of public involvement and concern with the proposal. The property owner of the lot did a lot of clearing in advance of receiving approval. And as a result, staff had to work pretty diligently and hard to ensure that if the lands are to be developed, that they remediate and ensure stormwater management, landscaping, and buffering and setbacks are all accounted for. I prepared a table as Schedule B, which tried to consolidate as much of the public comments as I could. I forwarded it to everyone who submitted comments so far in advance of the report being published, just to ensure that I captured their concerns, and generally most of the concerns were captured there. And I think it's ready for council discussion tonight.
Thank you. Councillor Coles, you have a comment?
Yeah, question, I guess for Taylor. You know, on the column 5 on the table 10.3, it talks about a planting strip of 6 meters wide between the self-storage use and residential zones. And having been to the site, unless they remove the fill, there's no way they can develop a planting area on the neighbor's side, particularly the neighbors on the, I think it's the west side, the opposite Osler Park Drive anyway. So are they prepared to actually remove some of the fill they've put in, the rocks and backfilling they've done?
Through your worship, I'm not too sure if they'd be ready to remove fill or that matter. One of the aspects of this where it gets a little bit difficult to accommodate is we are requesting a stormwater management plan to be prepared by a professional engineer, as well as a landscape architecture plan to look at the buffer. It is possible they're going to have to figure out a way between all these different plans being required to reestablish that buffer and get creative. Maybe some vegetation will have to be placed on a slope. I do seem to recall a lot of it was rock, so it might not be, the buffer won't be as substantial as what was removed. I think that's clear. Once you lose trees of that size, those take decades to come back.
I guess though, my concern is that there isn't any place to plant a buffer on his property because the rocks go right to the neighbor's lot line, the fill, which are just huge rocks. It's from I've been at both sides of this, and from the neighbor's perspective, it's not very pleasant. They built a brand new house, and this guy dumps fill like 6 or 8 maybe feet high, maybe it's even higher than that, and that goes right to the tree line, right to their property line. So in order to plant anything, it has to be on the neighbor's property, not on this guy's property.
Yeah, and you can't have conditions to plant on the neighbor's property, so this would apply just to their lands. Just to be clear, the buffer will have to be, it's proposed to be by staff, be 6 meters wide. They might have to shift it this way to maybe make up for it, and they won't be able to get it on the immediate property line. There's also going to be a 10-meter setback applying from the residential property in question, so they will have a lot of space within that 10-meter buffer to fit 6 meters of trees and whatnot. But this is why we required or recommending the requirement of a landscape architect plan, just because it's going to be difficult, and I think they need to have a professional look at it and ensure that it can be done correctly.
Absolutely would agree with that. It's a bit of a mess in terms, and also the buildings, I guess on the drawing, it's somewhat deceiving because I think they're closer to the property line than they're actually supposed to be. Is that correct?
Yeah, the plan in the proponent's words was conceptual. So what we've done is we use that as, okay, if that's a conceptual plan, the table you're looking at on page 337, the agenda, that's what's going to be required. So the conceptual drawing will have to be amended to reflect these hard numbers.
Okay. And I guess one other comment or question is on the other side of the property where the old house is, that's a rental house, I believe. I think it's under their ownership. There are significant issues with the driveway there where I'm getting mixed comments from the neighbors across the street, but they're saying that that driveway at one point was closed and now it's open, but when they get a heavy rain, the silt and gravel washes down the driveway and goes right across the road to the neighbor's driveway across Osler Park Drive. It literally floods their driveway. So there needs to be some attention paid there too.
Yeah, for the driveway, what we're proposing in the bylaw is that it be paved past the crown and form part of the stormwater management plan. It was decommissioned at one point, and then it was put back in. We're not sure when, but it was closed as a result of a previous application. Staff was a bit hesitant to say that it should remain closed because if we have a commercial operation going in on the east side of the property, accessing the house through the storage yard didn't seem logical, especially if it's supposed to be fenced. Whereas the driveway, as long as it's paved to the crown and it's looked at by the engineer, stormwater should be able to be mitigated in a way where it doesn't sheet flow across the streets and impact neighboring properties.
I agree, it's possible, it just needs some contouring. Yeah. Okay, thanks.
Councillor Fellner.
Thanks. Thank you, Mayor. Through you to Taylor. Taylor, I'm looking at the amendment on page whatever it is, 336 maybe. And it's you're talking about a 6-meter planting strip. Is that in addition to the, I don't see the 30 or the 10-meter buffer.
The 10, through your worship, the 10-meter buffer is built into the M1 zone provisions. So that would be the very last bullet point of column 5 is where that 10-meter buffer comes into play, because 10 meters is the rear yard distance in the M1 zone.
That's the rear yard. So my concerns are the same as sort of as Councillor Cole's. I think that, you know, the grade on this lot was raised substantially, artificially raised substantially. And I don't see, with even a 10-meter buffer and allowing a maximum building height of 6 meters, which will be on top of the substantial grade change, I don't see how you're going to limit any kind of visual impact to the neighbor. In my mind, you know, there's still roughly half of this lot that isn't filled. And in my mind, you know, we should be setting an elevation in this bylaw not to exceed ground elevation. I mean, to me, I'm not comfortable with this the way it sits. I mean, I think if we pass this, then I don't think we're going to protect the neighborhood adequately. Those are just my comments. It's so high. I mean, it's so high, and 10 meters is not, you know, not a great distance. I'm just not comfortable with it. So I don't know. To me, I think we need to go back and look at the elevation, the ground elevation that we're prepared to accept. But that's my my comment on that.
Director LG, do you have any comments on what you've just heard from our councillors?
Yeah, in regards to the setting a kind of a static elevation, not so much from where the existing grade is, but from a hard number. That's something that we couldn't work into the bylaw tonight. That's a pretty big, that's a substantial change. If that is the will of council, I would recommend a deferral, and these concerns can be related to the proponent, and they can see what ideas they have in order to accommodate that concern, and maybe they'll know ways of doing it where the grade can be lowered or the size of the buildings can be lowered, and they can try to do that.
Okay, thank you. It's difficult to defer to a new council, but I think you've heard some very serious concerns, both on the elevation issue and the ability to plant on rock. So perhaps there's a way to get at least a preliminary landscape architect to tell us what they're going to plant and where the soil's going to come from. So do I have a motion to defer? Yeah. Could I have a motion to defer, or do we vote on it as is?
No.
I propose to put a motion to defer.
Okay. We need a seconder for that motion. Councillor Coles.
I'll second that.
So a motion to defer from Councillor Fellner, seconded by Councillor Coles. So could I have a motion on the deferral, or a vote, sorry, on the motion to defer? Okay, Craig is suggesting we define how long we're deferring it to. Director LG, is a month away adequate, or do we defer all the way to the new year?
I think it would be closer to the new year. I was just playing through the request and the conversation the applicant I had, and if they're having to get elevations mapped, or if it comes to that, I don't think they can do that within a month with how busy surveyors are at this time of year. Yeah, I would say at least 2023 to play it safely.
Okay, and the Chief Administrative Officer would like to weigh in here.
Thank you, Your Worship, members of council. I just think I think Taylor mentioned it just right there. Getting surveyors and getting the folks we need in to help or with this at this time is extraordinarily difficult. So I would suggest if council would like to defer, that perhaps we defer it to the first quarter of 2023 with a report back. That should give us ample time to work with the landowner and see if we can get something back. But I would suggest nothing shorter than the first quarter of 2023 as a defined timeline.
Okay, thank you. So we need to vote on the motion to defer to the first quarter of 2023. All in favor of deferring? 2, 3. So that is carried as a deferral. I'm not sure I'm writing this right, but yeah, okay. Okay. Thank you. Thank you very much, Mr. LG. So I now have a bylaw number 2022-128 being a bylaw to authorize the execution of an acknowledgement and direction the Corporation of the Township of Seguin and the Estate of Glen Drew application general to delete option to repurchase property registered on September 10th, 2019 as an instrument number GB 124271 is hereby deemed to have been read a first, second, and third time and passed by council. Could I have a motion from Councillor Collins?
So move your motion, Mayor.
And seconded by Councillor Finson.
I second that motion.
Okay, and Taylor, are you going to speak to this? I think we've deferred this once before, but do you want to just quickly explain it?
Certainly. This is the second time council would have seen this. The first time there was the The motion was made that the lawyers prepare all the paperwork to allow the extension of this property as the property owners had personal hardships. The paperwork has been prepared, and it's on tonight's agenda. And this report and bylaw just to allow the mayor and clerk to authorize Schedule A to it.
Thank you. Are there any questions for Director Elgie? Okay, all in favor? Thank you. Okay, we have a report again from Director Elgie for information. And I think it's pretty specific. I am assuming you also all received, I believe it was Thursday or Friday, the Association of Municipalities of Ontario comment on the same act, which was very consistent with what Director Elgie had. Does anyone have any questions on this? Nope. Thank you, Director Elgie. It's going to be interesting to see what the province does with this act. They've got a lot of input. Okay, so I have a resolution here, and this refers back to the report. Whereas the Council of the Corporation of the Township of Seguin understands the urgency and overall vision of More Homes Built Faster, Ontario's Housing Supply Action Plan 2022-02-2023. And whereas the council wishes to provide comments in regards to ERO number 019-6163, specifically as it relates to exempting residential development not containing more than 10 residential units from site plan control. And whereas the Township of Seguin implements site plan control for residential development to ensure the protection of water quality, the preservation of the natural environment, and to preserve and enhance the shoreline's natural character. And whereas incorporating this new definition and applying it to waterfront rural areas will not have a positive impact upon residential intensification, as these lands are not intended nor suitable for such growth. Now therefore be it resolved that the Council of the Corporation of the Township of Seguin does hereby request that the proposed definition of development per section 11 bracket 1 of Schedule 9 of Bill 23 affecting section 41 bracket 1.2 of the Planning Act be preferably deleted, or at a minimum be further amended to limit this definition to only apply to areas within the parcel of urban residential land. Could I have a motion by Councillor Coles
I will so move.
and seconded by Councillor Osborne?
Second that.
All in favor of this resolution? Thank you. Thank you for addressing it in a very speedy fashion, Director Elgie. And I have a motion that the Council of the Corporation of Township of Seguin does hereby award the construction of Structure 27, Rose Point Recreational Trail Bridge to Marine Pro for an amount not to exceed $197,656 plus applicable taxes. Could I have a motion from Councillor Fellner
So move.
and seconded by Councillor Collins?
Seconder.
I think we do have the Director of Operations here. Can you speak to this a little bit?
Yeah, thank you, Mayor and members of council. Pretty straightforward. Now it's time to get the bridge built. We did have a good submission of 7 contractors, and it's just awarding of the low bid. It's been vetted and should be a good fit. So hopefully, if this is approved, looking forward to working with the individual.
Thank you very much. Are there any questions for Director McLeod? Nope. All in favor? Thank you. And I goofed. I skipped an item 7D, or no, corporate service 7E, which is the financial update. I apologize to our CFO because it's very important and it's good news. So we are going backwards to item 7E, which you have a complete package in your agenda package. So sorry, Michelle, but you're on.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Yeah, this is good news. We're turning the corner as we head into the end of the year. And, I'm sure that we will keep this upward trend as we get to December 31st.
Thank you. Are there any questions for Michelle Fraser? No, it's nice to see us going into the positive. So thank you very much. It's very comprehensive. I guess I skipped over it because it was so perfect. So we move on to 8, which is business. And we have a memo from staff about Remembrance Day services and who's attending what. I believe, Councillor Coles, you've already attended one.
I was there yesterday, Sunday, yeah.
Okay, thank you. And is everybody comfortable with where they are expected and at what time they're expected? And I believe the wreaths are here. I've picked the one up for Rosso, but those of you that are going to, is there one for the school?
So there is. We need to know other than that's all we have. Who's attending which ones, so we can send them all the information.
Okay, so can I just have a Foley's happened? Can I just have a show of hands? Who is planning to go to the Orville one?
I am.
Okay.
I've been doing it for years.
So will you come by the township?
Thank you for the trumpeter.
Okay, so staff will be in touch with you about the wreath and what have you. Humphrey has traditionally been Councillor Osborne.
Yes, Mayor. I sent an email to Colby indicating I would not be available for Humphrey School this year.
Is it appropriate to approach our councillor for Ward 3?
Absolutely.
Greg Eddy? So I think that's what staff should first do. If you can't get that, come back to council. Rosso, I was planning to attend, and I believe Councillor Finson too. Okay. Thank you. Is that what you need?
Yes.
Okay. Thank you. Okay. So we move on to item 8B. And this is a little bit of rating. Whereas the Community Safety and Policing Act 2019 calls for the end of the Community Police Advisory Committees, CPACs, and the creation of an Ontario Provincial Police Detachment Board. And whereas the Ministry of the Solicitor General has developed an OPP detachment board framework that will allow affected municipalities and First Nations the flexibility to create a board that reflects community and local needs. And whereas the Ministry of the Solicitor General has asked municipalities and First Nations within a detachment area to work together to determine the composition of their board and the manner in which they will submit their proposal to the ministry. And whereas members of the existing West Parry Sound District CPAC have indicated interest in establishing a board representative of CPAC municipalities and First Nations. Now, therefore, the Council of the Corporation of the Township of Seguin hereby supports submission by the CPAC representative from the municipality of McDougall to the province of Ontario, the Ontario Provincial Police Detachment Board proposal, substantially in the form attached, representing the 7 West Parry Sound area municipalities and the Henley Inlet First Nation, and further that this resolution be forwarded to the municipalities within the West Perry Sound District and the Henley Inlet First Nation. Could I have a motion to this effect by Councillor Finson?
I so move that motion.
And seconded by Councillor Coles.
I will second that motion.
And I'm going to ask Councillor Osborne to speak to this.
Well, as Joe Ryman, as our contact person with Solicitor General, has put that resolution together, and OPP, the Solicitor General's office, needs the agreement of all 7 municipalities, including Henley, in order to proceed with the formation of the new board. So Joe has circulated through their clerk to all townships to get this resolution passed so that we can move forward and strike down the committee and form a new board.
Thank you. Does anybody have any questions for Councillor Osborne? No? All in favor?
I might mention, Mayor, before you.
Sorry. Okay.
I might mention that the fact that this was an advisory committee, sort of like EMS with ambulance, we were only there to hear police reporting to the municipalities and ask questions of their activities. The new board will have the authority to further question operations of OPP, and they will participate in the promotions or new hires of staff sergeants, whereas before that was out of control by the committee. Now this new committee will have a say in who is selected as the staff sergeant for the OPP detachment, and it will have much more authority. Thank you.
Thank you very much for that clarification. All in favor? Thank you. I have bylaw number 2022-126, being a bylaw to write off taxes on properties in the Township of Seguin, is hereby deemed to be being read a first, second, and third time and passed by council. Could I have a motion from Councillor Osborne?
So moved.
And seconded by Councillor Fellner.
I'll second that.
I think it's pretty straightforward, but if there are any questions, it would be Michelle that would answer them. No questions? All in favor? Thank you. Council reports. Let's start with Councillor Coles.
Thank you, Mayor. Sorry about the mess at the beginning that I couldn't get in. Apologize for that. I have no idea what happened. It's never happened before, but
I think you should tune into YouTube and see what I did say about you.
okay.
To thank
have
you
to do
for
that.
your service.
You thought I was gone totally, right?
No, I did not, but I would like you to hear what you have accomplished.
I will tune in. So on October 26th, we had a Belvedere Heights Management Board meeting. In the absence of the chair, I'm the vice chair, so I was there. A good but not significant meeting. Then on the 27th, I again was at Belvedere signing checks for both Belvedere and the Community Support Services effort. And I'm again there this week. They process a lot of checks for services that they require. We've set up another ad hoc meeting with the West Perry Sound Health Center, Lakeland, and Belvedere, which is happening this Thursday. We spent a fair bit of time, and this is following the meeting we had with Graydon Smith a little while ago to just follow up on some items that are outstanding around management of the and governance of Belvedere, seeing as the municipalities have given up the beds and where we go next. So it's just pulling in some loose ends. We're also in the process of setting up a subsequent meeting with Belvedere to talk about the life lease situation, and that's really something we can't say too much more about tonight. But ongoing activities. That's all I have to say tonight.
Thank you very much. Counselor Osborne.
Yes, thank you, Mayor. I attended an EMS meeting last Thursday, and I believe it's, correct me if I'm wrong, Michelle may have the information, that's 3.5% planned increase for 23. Other than that, no meetings. However, I would like to make a few comments. I'd like to begin by congratulating Greg Getty on his win. Obviously, I was disappointed with the results. Voter turnout was at an all-time low in my experience. And I believe this was a result of not having a mayoralty race, which created pretty much a lack of interest, and the fact that residents have very few issues with township operations, other than short-term rentals. This is a testament to the fact that council and staff have done a great job over the past 4 years. I've enjoyed my tenure with Seguin Council over the past 12 years and wish the new council every success during their next term. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And thank you for everything you've contributed to the township. Counselor Fellner.
Thank you, Mayor. I haven't had, since the last meeting, any committee meetings. I haven't had any calls. So I don't have a lot to report there. I would like, however, to thank, first of all, my constituents for the faith they had in me and letting me have a relatively easy time in the election. And I would certainly like to thank very much Art Coles and Rod Osborne for the tremendous amount of work they and thought, and in Mr. Osborne's case, the experience he brought to the table. 4 years ago, some of us went in as newbies. All of us went in as newbies, so it was good to have that depth of experience. We didn't always agree, but we always agreed to disagree. So I think we were a good team, and from the bottom of my heart, thank you very much. It was a very good experience for me the last 4 years.
Thank you. Counselor Collins.
Yes, thank you, Mayor. I've always said that, well, first of all, I have a DSAB meeting, I think on the 10th of this month, don't we, Gail, I think, in the evening. Other than that, things have been pretty quiet, except of course, during the election, the last moments during the election. And I've often said to each of my colleagues that a unified, and the mayor, that a unified council, having the experienced voices to help people succeed will always be necessary for our next term and long-term success of our township. And I just want to say I appreciate every chance I get to engage with council and to understand council and councilors and to understand your perspectives, even and especially when we disagree. But it is because of that support that I have had the opportunity of a lifetime to serve this fantastic township. And I am hopeful for everyone's support once again for another 4 years term. And I would just like to take this opportunity to thank everybody who has supported me over the years. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you very much. Counselor Finson.
I haven't had a really busy week, couple of weeks. I had a cemetery meeting. I also had a museum meeting. I had several phone calls and emails that were quite interesting, but I luckily I was able to pass them on to those who know how to solve those things, and staff and Jason were very helpful. Anyway, I've had relatively quiet. It's still a lot of phone calls and emails, but pretty easy to answer. I would also like to say thank you to Rod and to Art. I'm going to get emotional. Sorry. Just thank you. It has been a fabulous 4 years, especially the last 2, and now I kind of know what I'm doing, but I'm going to miss you. It really has been a wonderful experience. I would not have, as a matter of fact, after the first year, I thought, oh my God, what am I doing? But I'm way more comfortable because of everybody, because of the differences, and because of all of the help that I got from everybody. So thank you very much. And thank you to my constituents for trusting me with another 4 years. And good luck to everybody. I will miss you. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Well, I won't dwell on much, but I'll tell you what we've been up to since October 17th. Councillor Coles and I met with Clear Lake Estates to move some of the items that we passed earlier today in the meeting forward. They're anxious, but they are checking off the bits one by one. The 18th, Jason and I met with Sean and Kevin to talk about emergency planning in the township. And there is going to be a planning exercise coming up in a couple of weeks. We will have an emergency that's going to be planned. I also attended on October 19th a taping on Museum Hill with Bert Liverance, who's the Reeve of the Archipelago. He is doing a special historical video and tape from the heads of council on the impact of COVID on rural municipalities. So I was interviewed for that. And on the 21st, it was a Friday, Jason and I attended Wasauksing with Chief Warren Tabata and the CAO, he's not a CAO, he's got a different title, but he's like a CAO, Adam Good. And it was a very interesting learning experience of sharing. And I think it's just the beginning of a new but long-lasting relationship. We have lots to learn, and they have many philosophies that I think would benefit us. So it's just the beginning. 24th was election day, and I know it was busy here. On November 1st, after almost 8 months of asking, we had a meeting, Jason and I, with Mayor Jamie McGarvey and CAO Clayton from Parry Sound. And again, we stressed that we would hope that that is the beginning of monthly meetings between the two municipalities. We'll see, but it was a productive meeting and we talked about lots, but we have asked to have a regular meeting with the town of Parry Sound. November 2nd was the seniors lunch and learn in Foley. And I'm trying to get some actual invitations and details from the community services support people that run these, so they can be distributed in paper, because the seniors are not necessarily online, particularly in Rosso, in Orville, because I didn't see anybody from those two communities at that lunch and learn. It seems to be Foley centric, but it's supposed to be township wide. And they do provide transportation to these. It's $14 each day, and it's once a month. So I will continue to pursue that. And then on November 3rd, a bunch of us gathered outside on a spring-like day to raise the biosphere flag here at the community center. And that once again stands for something that's really important, environment first, for this council and the council moving forward. So it's a symbol of how important it is to us. And like everybody else, I really want to say a heartfelt thanks to Art and to Rod, but to all of you for being a council that wanted to get things done and cared so passionately about how important the quality of life and the governance is in Seguin. We've made some huge strides, and we just keep going. As I said before, I think we're on a roll. So with that, we move on with a motion that the Council of the Corporation of the Township of Seguin does hereby receive the board and committee minutes and agendas and the correspondence as presented on the agenda and the addendum for November 7th, 2022 meeting of council. Could I have a motion from Councillor Collins
I so move your motion.
and seconded by Councillor Finson?
I'll second that motion.
All in favor? Thank you. And I have a motion that the Council of the Corporation of the Township of Seguin does hereby proceed to a closed meeting at 6:20 PM in order to address the matters pertaining to litigation or potential litigation, including matters before administrative tribunals affecting the municipality or local board. And that's related to the purchase of the replacement bridge for structure 27 on the Rose Point Recreational Trail, and personal matters about an identifiable individual, including municipal or local board employees. Could I have a motion to move into closed from Councillor Coles
I will so move.
and seconded by Councillor Osborne?
Second,
All in favor? Thank you. Okay.